The alien ship Horizon Seeker moved silently through space as it approached the blue planet. Earth looked peaceful from a distance. Blue oceans, white clouds, and green and brown land formed a beautiful sphere against the blackness of space. But the aliens knew better. Their records showed that humans had destroyed themselves in a terrible war 200 years ago. Captain Alara stood on the bridge, her tall gray form reflected in the viewing glass. She had 4 eyes that blinked in pairs and skin that shimmered slightly in the dim light of the ship. "Scan the planet again," she ordered. Officer Mix tapped at the control panel with his 6-fingered hands. "Still no signals, Captain. No radio. Waves. No artificial lights on the night side, no space vessels. Just like the last 50 years of our monitoring." The Collective, a group of 7 advanced alien species who had joined together to explore space, had been watching Earth for decades. They called it a dead world, a sad example of a species that destroyed itself. Earth was just one of many planets they studied, but it held special interest because humans had been so close to joining the stars before they vanished. "Prepare the landing teams," Captain Alara said. "Remember, this is a scientific mission. We are here to study how the planet recovers after such damage." Dr. Zarix nodded his large head. He was the lead scientist, an expert in studying life on different worlds. "My team is ready, Captain. We have been waiting for permission to land on Earth for many years." Standing quietly at the back of the bridge was Nylith, a junior researcher on her first mission. She was smaller than the others, with pale blue skin that darkened when she was excited as it was now. Unlike her teammates who saw Earth as just another research subject, Nylith had spent years studying the fragments of human history and culture available in the Collective's records. "Junior researcher Nylith," Captain Alara called. "You look troubled." Nylith stepped forward. "Not troubled, Captain. Just thinking about what we might find. The records show humans were interesting. They created beautiful art and music. They explored their own planet completely. They were very close to developing space travel beyond their solar system when they had their war." Dr. Zarix made a sound that was the equivalent of a human sigh. "They were also aggressive and divided. Like many young species, they could not overcome their violent tendencies." The ship moved into orbit around Earth. The main screen showed images of the planet's surface. Where human cities had once stood, forests now grew. Rivers had changed. Coarse animals roamed freely through crumbling remains of buildings. "Look there," Officer Mix pointed to the screen. "That was once a city called New York. Now it is mostly underwater and covered in plant life." The bridge crew stared at the images. It was always sobering to see a world where intelligent life had disappeared. "No signs of radiation?" asked Dr. Zarix. "Very minimal," replied Mix. "After 200 years, most of the dangerous radiation from their weapons has faded. The planet has been healing itself." Captain Alara made her decision. "We will send 3 landing teams. First team to what was North America, second to Europe, and third to Asia. Each team will collect samples and data on how the ecosystem has recovered. No one is to enter any standing human structures without full safety protocols. Even though we detect no dangerous levels of radiation, there may be other hazards." The teams prepared their landing vessels. Nylith was assigned to the first team heading to North America. As they boarded their small craft, she could barely contain her excitement. She had packed extra equipment specifically designed to look for any signs of human artifacts. "Remember," Dr. Zarix told the team as their ship detached from the horizon. "Seeker, we are here as scientists, not treasure hunters. Focus on your assigned tasks." The landing craft entered Earth's atmosphere, causing a brief period of turbulence before it steadied. Through the windows, Nylith could see the landscape below. Forests stretched for miles, with occasional breaks, where the remains of human roads could still be seen as faint lines. They landed in a clearing near what had once been a medium-sized human settlement. The ship's systems indicated it had been called Ridgemont. Now it was mostly reclaimed by nature, with only the occasional wall or foundation visible among the trees and undergrowth. The air was safe to breathe according to their instruments, but protocol required them to wear their environmental suits for the first expedition. The team of 8 researchers exited the craft cautiously, each carrying specialized equipment. "Spread out in pairs," instructed Dr. Zarix. Stay within communication range. Document everything. Nylith was paired with Trex, an older researcher, who specialized in plant life. They headed toward a section of the former town where several structures were still partially standing. The plant recovery is remarkable, Trex noted, scanning a tree that had grown through what appeared to be a small building. Several species have adapted to use the human materials as growth supports. Nylith nodded, but her attention was drawn to the building itself. This appears to have been a shop of some kind, she said, examining the faded sign that still clung to one wall. While Trex collected plant samples, Nylith carefully entered the collapsed structure. Her scanner showed no dangerous materials or organisms. Inside, most items had rotted away long ago, but she found sections of metal shelving and what might have been a counter. In one corner, protected from the worst of the weather by a fallen section of ceiling, she discovered a small plastic container. "Look at this," she called to Trex, who reluctantly paused his plant cataloging to join her. Inside the container were papers, actual physical documents that had somehow survived 2 centuries. Nylith carefully lifted one out. It had faded writing, and numbers on it. "I believe these were called receipts," she said. "Records of exchanges humans made when they purchased items." Trex looked unimpressed. "Make sure you document it properly, then let's continue. Dr. Zareks wants soil samples from the entire grid." They continued their survey with Trex focusing on the plant life and Nylith constantly distracted by signs of the vanished humans. By midday, they had covered several blocks of the former town. "This would have been their main street," Nylith said as they walked along a path where the pavement was still visible in patches. Suddenly her scanner beeped. "Energy reading," she said, surprised. "Impossible," Trex replied. "Check your equipment." Nylith adjusted her scanner. "It's faint but definite, coming from under us." They both looked down at the cracked pavement. Trex called it in to Dr. Zareks, who ordered them to wait for the rest of the team before investigating further. As they waited, Nylith knelt and cleared away some debris from the pavement. There appeared to be a pattern in the cracks, almost as if, "This isn't random damage," she said quietly. "This looks deliberate." Before Trex could respond, a section of the ground near them moved. It wasn't an earthquake, it was too controlled. A hidden door was opening in what they had thought was solid ground. Both aliens stepped back, reaching for their defensive tools. A passage was revealed leading down into darkness. Then lights flickered on inside the passage, illuminating a metal-lined tunnel. And then came the sound that would change everything. Footsteps, coming up from below. A figure emerged from the passage. It stood on 2 legs and had 2 arms. It had pale skin and dark hair, and wore clean, well-maintained clothing unlike the tattered remnants they had seen in the ruins. It was a human, alive and healthy, and looking at them with as much shock as they felt. "Well," said the human in a deep voice. "I guess the neighborhood watch was right about visitors. I'm Steve Bennett, and you folks are a long way from home, aren't you?" Silence fell over the clearing. Nylith and Trex stared at the human named Steve Bennett. He was tall with broad shoulders and short brown hair. He wore clean blue pants and a gray shirt with no tears or patches. This was not a survivor, barely getting by. This was a human who had been living well. Steve looked at the aliens with curiosity but not fear. "I guess I should say welcome to Earth," he said. "Though to be honest, we weren't planning on having guests just yet." Trex moved his hand slowly to his communication device. "Dr. Zareks," he said quietly, "we have a situation. A living human has appeared." Dr. Zareks's voice came through clearly. "That's not possible. Your sensors must be malfunctioning." "No malfunction," Trex replied. "I am looking at a human male. He is speaking to us." While Trex was talking, Nylith took a step toward Steve. "You said we," she noted. "There are more humans?" Steve nodded. "Many more. And I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but since you've already found one of our entrances." He shrugged. "The cat's out of the bag, as we used to say." By now, the rest of the alien team was rushing toward their position. Dr. Zareks arrived first, his forearms carrying various scanning devices which he immediately pointed at Steve. "Remarkable," he said. "A perfectly healthy human specimen. No signs of radiation damage or genetic mutation." He looked at the open passage. "And you live underground?" Steve nodded. "For the last 200 years. Ever since the war." He looked up at the sky. "We knew someone would come eventually. We've detected ships passing through our solar system before, but none ever landed. Until now." Captain Ilara's voice came through on all their communication devices. "Dr. Zareks, what is happening?" "Down there? Your life signs monitors are showing unusual readings." "Captain," Dr. Zareks replied, "we have made contact with a living human. It appears humans did not die out as we believed. They moved underground." There was a pause. "Bring this human to the ship," the captain ordered. Steve held up his hands. "That's not going to happen, but I can introduce you to our leaders if you're interested. They'll want to meet you." Dr. Zareks considered this. "Very well, but I must inform my captain." Steve nodded toward the open passage. "Your communication devices won't work underground. We've made sure of that. You can send someone back to your ship with a message, or you can come with me and meet our council. Your choice." After a brief discussion, Dr. Zareks decided to split the team. Half would return to the landing craft to inform Captain Ilara of the situation. The other half, including Nihilith, would go with Steve to meet the human leaders. "This way," Steve said, gesturing toward the passage. "Watch your step, the entrance tunnel is steep." Nihilith, Dr. Zareks, and 2 other researchers followed Steve into the passage. As they descended, lights along the walls turned on automatically. The tunnel was smooth and well-maintained, with metal supports and clear signs of advanced engineering. "How far down do we go?" asked Nihilith as they continued their descent. "About half a mile," Steve replied. "Our settlement is built inside an old mine system that we've expanded over the generations. We call it Haven 1. After 20 minutes of walking downward, they reached a large metal door. Steve placed his hand on a panel, and the door slid open silently. Beyond it was a sight none of the aliens had expected. A vast, open space stretched before them, at least a mile across and several hundred feet high. The ceiling was covered with panels that glowed with a soft light similar to sunlight. The floor of the cavern was filled with buildings, not ruins, but well-maintained structures, arranged in neat streets. There were areas of green where plants grew, and in the center a large pool of clear water. People moved about between the buildings, going about their daily lives. "Welcome to Haven 1, Steve said. "Population, just over 4,000 humans." Dr. Zareks was speechless. Nihilith stepped forward, her blue skin darkening with excitement. "This is amazing," she said. "You've built an entire city underground." "Not just one," Steve replied. "There are 12 havens spread around the world, connected by a network of tunnels and communication systems. Total population is around 50,000 humans." As they walked into the underground city, people stopped to stare at the aliens. Some looked afraid, others curious. Children pointed and whispered. "Most of these people have never seen a non-human before," Steve explained. "Only our scouts go to the surface, and even then they've never met aliens." He led them to a large building in the center of the city. Inside, a group of humans waited around a table. An older woman with silver hair stood as they entered. "I'm Laura Grant," she said. "Leader of Haven 1's council. Steve tells me you're from something called the Collective?" Dr. Zarek stepped forward. "Yes. I am Dr. Zarek's lead scientist of our expedition. We came to study Earth's recovery after what we believed was a civilization-ending war. We had no idea humans had survived." Laura nodded. "That was the point. Please sit down, we have much to discuss." The aliens took seats around the table. Other human council members introduced themselves. Henry Woods, the chief engineer, Mary Davis, head of agriculture, and John Parker, security director. "First," Laura said, "we should explain why we're down here and why we let the universe think we were extinct." She touched a control on the table, and a 3-dimensional image appeared above it. A map of Earth as it had been before the war. 100 years ago, our world was on the brink of destruction. Not just from our weapons, but from how we lived. We were using up resources too quickly, changing the climate, polluting the air and water. The war was just the final push. The image changed to show explosions across the planet. But some people saw it coming, Laura continued. Scientists, engineers, forward thinkers from many countries. They built these underground shelters, not just to survive the war, but as a way to give Earth a chance to heal without humans interfering. You went underground to save your planet? Nihilith asked. Laura nodded. The original plan was to stay below for 100 years, but when the first scouts went up, they found the surface was still too damaged. So we stayed, generation after generation. We rebuilt our society, but differently this time. We learned to live with less space, fewer resources. We learned not to waste. And no one on the surface knew you were here? Dr. Zarek asked. There was no one left on the surface to know, John Parker said. At least no humans. The war killed nearly everyone. The shelters saved only a small fraction of the population. So, why reveal yourselves now? Nihilith asked. Why speak to us? The human council members exchanged glances. Laura sighed. Because we need help, she said. Something is happening on the surface. Something we don't understand. And we think it might be related to your arrival. She touched another control, and the image changed to show a section of forest not far from where the aliens had landed. In the center was a perfect circle where all plant life had died. This appeared 3 days ago, Laura said. The day your ship entered our solar system, and it's not the only one. The image zoomed out to show dozens of similar circles across the continent. Whatever this is, Laura said, it's spreading, and we think you might know what's causing it. Dr. Zarek stared at the images of the dead circles in the forest. His 4 eyes blinked rapidly as he processed this information. I assure you our expedition is purely scientific. We have done nothing to cause this damage. Captain Alara's voice suddenly came through on a speaker in the middle of the table. Dr. Zarek, are you there? We've been trying to reach you. Everyone at the table looked surprised. Laura Grant raised an eyebrow at John Parker, who shrugged. They must have found a way to boost their signal, he said. Our shields aren't perfect. Laura nodded to Dr. Zarek. Go ahead and answer. I'm here, Captain, Dr. Zarek replied. I'm with the human leadership. They have shown us their underground city. There are thousands of living humans here. So I've been told, Captain Alara said. The rest of your team has returned to the ship, but that's not why I'm calling. Our sensors have detected unusual energy patterns on the surface near your location, dark circles where all life has suddenly died. Laura and the other humans exchanged worried glances. The humans just showed us those same patterns, Dr. Zarek said. They thought we might be responsible. We are not, Captain Alara said firmly, but we have seen this pattern before on other worlds. Worlds that... The captain paused and the humans leaned forward anxiously. Worlds that what? Laura asked. Worlds that were about to be visited by the harvesters, Captain Alara finished. The alien researchers looked alarmed. Nihilith's blue skin turned almost white with fear. What are the harvesters? Steve asked. Dr. Zarek turned to the humans. They are a species that travels between star systems. They do not communicate or negotiate. They land on planets and extract resources, both living and non-living materials. They take what they want and leave. The dead circles are their scanning marks, where they're checking what resources exist. They've destroyed several worlds on the outer edges of collective space, Nihilith added. We've tried to stop them, but their technology is very advanced. Laura stood up. How long do we have before they arrive? Based on previous patterns, Captain Alara said through the speaker, a few days at most. I am contacting collective headquarters for assistance, but the nearest defense fleet is 2 weeks away. John Parker slammed his fist on the table. So we just survived 200 years underground, got our planet halfway healed, and now some space vultures are going to strip it bare. Not if we can help it, Laura said. She turned to Dr. Zarek. What kind of defenses does your ship have? The Horizon Seeker is a research vessel, Dr. Zarek replied. We have minimal defensive capabilities. We were not expecting to encounter any threats here. Henry Woods, the chief engineer, had been quiet until now. What about our old defense systems? He asked, looking at Laura. They haven't been used in generations, Laura said. We don't even know if they still work. What defense systems? Nylith asked. Laura hesitated, then nodded to Henry. He touched the table controls and a new image appeared, a network of satellites in orbit around Earth. Before the war, Earth had defense satellites in orbit, Henry explained. They were designed to shoot down incoming missiles, but they could target ships too. When our ancestors went underground, they maintained control of some of these systems. They've been powered down for almost 200 years, but they're still up there. If they even work after all this time, John added skeptically. It's worth trying, Henry insisted. I can send a team to the control center immediately. Laura nodded. Do it. She turned to the aliens. We'll need to coordinate with your ship. If the harvesters are coming, we'll need every advantage we can get. Dr. Zareks agreed. Captain Alara, did you hear that? I did, the captain replied. We will assist in any way we can. I suggest you return to the ship as soon as possible, Dr. Zareks. We need to prepare. As the meeting ended, Nylith approached. Laura, may I stay and help? She asked. I have studied Earth history extensively. I might be able to assist with understanding the old defense systems. Laura considered this for a moment, then nodded. We could use all the help we can get. Steve, please take Nylith to the archives. Show her everything we have on the defense satellites. Steve nodded and gestured for Nylith to follow him. As they walked through the underground city, Nylith noticed people rushing about with more purpose now. The news of the approaching threat must have spread quickly. Are people scared? She asked Steve. Of course, he replied. But we're also fighters. Humans have survived worse. We're not going to let some space scavengers take our home without a battle. They entered a large building with rows of computer, terminals, and storage units. An older woman with curly white hair looked up as they entered. Steve, what's going on? She asked. Everyone's running around like there's a fire. We have visitors, Ellen, Steve said, gesturing to Nylith. And we might have trouble coming. We need access to the defense satellite archives. Ellen's eyes widened. The defense systems? Those haven't been active since before I was born. Well, we might need them now, Steve said. This is Nylith. She's going to help us. Ellen looked at the alien with surprise but quickly recovered. Follow me, she said, leading them to a sealed door at the back of the room. She placed her hand on a scanner, and the door opened to reveal a smaller room filled with older equipment. This is where we keep the original control systems, Ellen explained. Everything is backed up, but no one has used it in generations. Steve and Nylith spent the next few hours going through the archives. Nylith was amazed at how advanced human technology had been before the war. The defense satellites were powerful, weapons with precision targeting capabilities. If we can get these working, she said, we might have a chance against the harvesters. Meanwhile, in another part of Haven 1, Dr. Zareks was preparing to return to the Horizon Seeker with information about the human defenses. Laura Grant and her council members walked with him to the surface exit. We'll need to coordinate our efforts, Laura said. If your ship can detect the harvesters' approach, you can warn us when to activate the defense systems. Dr. Zareks agreed. The collective has encountered the harvesters before. We know some of their weaknesses. Working together, we might be able to drive them away. As they reached the surface, Dr. Zareks looked up at the sky. Night had fallen, and stars were visible. Between the clouds. For centuries we thought Earth was dead, he said. Now we find not only that humans survived, but that they might help us defeat an enemy the collective has struggled against for years. Laura followed his gaze upward. We've been hiding long enough, she said. It's time for humans to return to the stars, if we can save our planet one more time. Back in the archives, Steve suddenly called out to Nylith. I found something, the activation codes for the satellite network, and according to this, they should still be operational. The solar panels would have kept them powered, and they're designed to last for centuries. Nylith's skin darkened with excitement. This could work, she said. We need to get this information to Dr. Xerix and Captain Alara. Just then, alarms began to sound throughout Haven 1. A voice came over the city's speaker system. Attention, all citizens. Unknown vessels have entered Earth orbit. This is not a drill. Defense teams to your stations. Steve and Nylith looked at each other. They're here, Steve said. The harvesters have arrived. Steve grabbed Nylith's arm and pulled her toward the door. We need to get to the command center, he said. That's where they'll be coordinating our defenses. They rushed through the underground city. People were moving quickly, but in an organized way. There was no panic, just purpose. Generations of drills and preparation for emergencies showed in how calmly the citizens of Haven 1 responded to the alarm. Your people are very disciplined, Nylith said as they ran. We've had to be, Steve replied. Living underground means everyone has to follow the rules. One mistake could endanger everyone. They reached a large building at the center of Haven 1. Guards stood at the entrance, but they recognized Steve and let him and Nylith pass. Inside, Laura Grant and the other council members were gathered around a large circular table with a glowing display in the center. The display showed Earth and several large objects entering orbit. 7 ships, John Parker was saying. Bigger than anything we've ever seen in our satellite images. Dr. Xerix's voice came through a speaker. I've returned to the Horizon Seeker. We're picking up the same vessels. They match known harvester configurations. What are they doing now? Laura asked. Just taking up positions around the planet. Captain Alara replied. This is typical of their behavior. They surround a world before they begin landing operations. How much time do we have? Henry Woods asked. Based on previous encounters, anywhere from 6 to 12 hours, Captain Alara said. They appear to be conducting detailed scans of the surface. Steve stepped forward. We found the activation codes for the defense satellites, he said, holding up a data device. And according to the archives, they should still be operational. Laura nodded. Good work. Henry, can your team use these? Henry took the device from Steve. We'll need to power up the control systems. No one has used them in generations, but the hardware was built to last. Do it, Laura ordered. And contact the other havens. We need to coordinate with all of them. As Henry and his team went to work, Laura turned to Nylith. Your captain mentioned that these harvesters have attacked other worlds. Have they ever been defeated? Nylith's skin darkened slightly. Not defeated, but driven away. They avoid targets that are too costly to harvest. If we can damage their ships enough, they might decide Earth isn't worth the effort. Then that's our goal, Laura said. We don't need to destroy them all. Just make them think twice about staying. On the Horizon Seeker, Dr. Xerix was reviewing data from their previous encounters with the harvesters. Captain, he said, there's something strange about this attack. The harvesters usually target inhabited worlds with active surface civilizations. They've never shown interest in supposedly dead planets before. Captain Alara considered this. Perhaps they detected the human havens? Possibly, Dr. Xerix agreed. But the humans have been careful to shield their presence. Even our advanced sensors didn't detect them until we were on the surface. So why come to Earth now? Captain Alara wondered. After 200 years of leaving it alone? Down in Haven 1, Henry's team was working frantically to power up the old satellite control systems. Dust-covered screens flickered to life, and forgotten machines hummed as they received power for the first time in centuries. The good news is that the satellites are still there, Henry reported. The bad news is that only 60% of them are responding to our signals. The others have either failed over time or drifted out of position. Will it be enough? Laura asked. Henry shrugged. It has to be. In another part of the command center, communications operators were talking with the other 11 havens around the world. All of them reported the same thing. Harvester ships in orbit above them and strange circular patterns appearing on the surface. Haven 4 in what was once called Europe has their defense controls working, an operator reported. So does Haven 7 in Asia. The others are still trying. Suddenly, the display in the center of the room changed. The harvester ships were moving, dropping lower in orbit. "They're starting their approach," John said. "We need to act now." Henry looked up from his control panel. "The system is ready, but we don't have enough power to activate all the remaining satellites at once. We'll have to target them one at a time." "Focus on the ship that seems to be leading the others," Laura ordered. "If we can damage that one, it might confuse their operation." Henry nodded and began entering commands. On the display, one of the small dots representing a defense satellite began to blink. "Charging weapons," Henry said. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. A beam of light shot from the satellite toward the largest harvester ship. It hit, but seemed to do little damage. "Again," Laura ordered. Henry targeted another satellite. Another beam fired, hitting the same spot. This time the harvester ship showed signs of damage. "It's working," John exclaimed. On the Horizon Seeker, Captain Alara and Dr. Zarix watched the attack with surprise. "Those defense systems are more powerful than we expected," Captain Alara said. "The humans have managed to maintain some impressive technology." "Captain," called one of the crew members, "the harvester ships are changing position. They appear to be targeting the source of the attacks. Warn the humans," Captain Alara ordered. "The harvesters will try to destroy those satellites." Back in Haven 1, the warning came through just as they were preparing to fire a third satellite. "Change targets," Laura ordered. "Hit different ships with each shot. Don't give them time." "To focus on any one satellite." Henry nodded and began entering new commands. 3 more satellites fired in quick succession, each targeting a different harvester ship. All 3 hits caused visible damage. "Haven 4 and Haven 7 are attacking too," an operator reported. "They're targeting the ships in their regions. For the first time, it seemed like they might have a chance. But then the harvester ships responded. Beams of energy shot down from several ships, targeting areas on the surface. "They're taking out our satellites," Henry said, watching as several dots disappeared from his control screen. One of the harvester beams hit close to Haven 1's location. The entire underground city shook with the impact. "They're not just aiming for the satellites," John said grimly. "They're targeting the ground near our havens. They know we're here." "How?" Laura asked. "How could they detect us when we've been hidden for centuries?" Steve looked at Nylith, a sudden realization dawning on his face. "The collective," he said. "Your ship found us. What if the harvesters followed you here?" All eyes turned to Nylith. Her skin paled to an almost white color. "It's possible," she admitted. "They could have detected our approach and followed our scanning patterns. We led them right to you." Another impact shook the command center. Dust fell from the ceiling and some of the screens flickered. "It doesn't matter how they found us," Laura said firmly. "What matters is stopping them now. Henry, how many satellites do we have left?" Henry checked his controls. 8 responding to Haven 1, maybe 20 more controlled by the other havens. "Not enough," John said. Laura looked at the display showing the 7 massive harvester ships. Despite the damage they'd inflicted, the ships continued their approach. "We need help," she said. She turned to the communication panel. "Captain Alara, is there anything your ship can do?" There was a pause before the alien captain responded. "The Horizon Seeker has minimal weapons, but we do have one advantage. The harvesters don't know we're here. They're focused on your defense. Satellites." "What are you suggesting?" Laura asked. "A closer approach," Captain Alara said. "If we can get near their command ship, we might be able to disrupt their coordination." It was a dangerous plan, but they were running out of options. As the Horizon Seeker moved toward the lead harvester ship, Haven 1 fired its remaining satellites to provide cover. "If this doesn't work," Steve said quietly to Nylith, "what will happen to Earth?" Nylith's 4 eyes met his gaze steadily. "The harvesters will strip the surface of all valuable resources. The forests, the oceans, the minerals. Everything your planet has been healing for 200 years will be gone." Steve nodded grimly. "Then we better make sure this works." The Horizon Seeker moved silently through Earth's orbit, approaching the massive harvester command ship. Captain Alara stood on the bridge, her 4 eyes fixed on the viewing screen. Maintain stealth systems, she ordered. We'll only get one chance at this. Dr. Zareks worked at a control panel, preparing a special device. The disruptor is ready, Captain. But we'll need to get within 500 meters of their ship for it to work. That close? Captain Alara said with concern. Their weapons could destroy us instantly at that range. It's the only way, Dr. Zareks replied. The disruptor affects their communication systems. If we can break the link between the command ship and the others, it might create enough confusion for the humans to do more damage with their remaining satellites. Captain Alara nodded. Take us in. Meanwhile, in Haven 1, Laura Grant and her team watched anxiously as the Horizon Seeker approached the Harvester ship. Their display showed both vessels as blinking lights against the backdrop of Earth. They're very brave, Laura said quietly. Or very foolish, John added. Henry Woods continued working at his control panel. I've got 4 satellites aimed and ready, just waiting for the signal from Captain Alara. Steve and Nyleth stood side by side watching the display. Without thinking, Steve reached out and took Nyleth's hand. She looked surprised but didn't pull away. Do your people have a word for hope against impossible odds? Steve asked. Nyleth's skin rippled with a subtle color change. We call it Tsarik. It means believing in light when surrounded by darkness. Then Tsarik it is, Steve said with a small smile. The tension in the command center grew as they watched the Horizon Seeker draw closer to the Harvester ship. It was now close enough that the display showed them as almost touching. They've done it, Henry said. They're in position. At that moment, a bright flash appeared on the screen. For a terrible second, everyone thought the Horizon Seeker had been destroyed. But then they saw that both ships were still there. The disruptor activated, Laura said, listening to the report coming through the communication system. Captain Alara says they're pulling away now. The Harvester ship is showing signs of confusion. Now, Henry shouted, activating the satellites. 4 beams of energy shot from Earth's orbit, all striking the command ship at once. This time, the damage was significant. The display showed parts of the Harvester ship breaking apart. Haven 4 and 7 are firing too, an operator reported. More beams hit other Harvester ships. Without coordination from their command vessel, the alien ships seemed to hesitate. It's working, John exclaimed. But the victory was short-lived. The Harvester ships began to move again, this time dropping rapidly toward Earth's surface. They're starting landing procedures, Henry said grimly. They're going to begin harvesting operations. We've hurt them, but not enough, Laura said. She turned to the communication panel. Captain Alara, they're still coming. We see it, Captain Alara replied. The disruptor worked temporarily, but their systems are adapting. We need something more. Nyleth suddenly stepped forward. The archives, she said to Steve. Remember what we saw about the defense system? There was more than just the satellites. Steve's eyes widened. The ground-based lasers. I forgot about those. He rushed to Henry's side. There were ground-based defense systems too. Huge laser arrays built inside mountains. They were meant as a last resort because they use so much power. Henry looked skeptical. Those would have been abandoned even before the havens were built. There's no way they still work. We have to try, Laura insisted. Where were they located? Steve turned to Nyleth. You saw the maps. Where was the nearest one? Nyleth thought for a moment. According to your archives, there was one built inside a mountain about 20 miles from here. It was called... She hesitated, trying to remember the human name. Eagle Peak. John nodded. I know it. We've done surface surveys in that area. The mountain is still there, mostly intact. Laura made a quick decision. John, take a team to the surface. Steve and Nyleth go with them. Find that facility and see if there's any way to activate it. Even if we find it, it would need enormous power, Henry warned. Haven 1's main reactor might be enough, Laura said. We've never used it at full capacity before. That would mean diverting power from life support systems, Henry said. We'd be in darkness down here. Laura looked around at her people. If those harvesters land, we'll lose everything anyway. Do it. Within minutes, Steve, Nyleth, John, and a team of 4 other humans were in a transport vehicle, racing through an underground tunnel toward a surface exit. They emerged into daylight about a mile from Haven 1's main entrance. "There," John said, pointing to a mountain peak in the distance. "Eagle Peak. We'll have to move fast." In the sky above them, they could see the harvester ships, now visible, as huge dark shapes descending through the clouds. One was landing about 50 miles away, its massive form settling on what had once been a city. They drove at high speed across the overgrown landscape. When they reached the base of the mountain, they had to continue on foot, climbing up a steep path. "The entrance should be on the north face," Nyleth said, recalling the maps. "Hidden in a rock formation. After 20 minutes of searching, they found it. A metal door built into the mountainside, almost completely covered by vegetation. It took all 6 humans to pull it open, the ancient hinges protesting after centuries of disuse. Inside was a dusty corridor leading deep into the mountain. Emergency lights flickered on as they entered, powered by ancient backup systems. "At least something still works," John muttered. They made their way through the facility until they reached a large chamber filled with massive equipment. A control console stood at the center. "This is it," Steve said. "The main array control." John contacted Haven 1. "We've found it. The facility is intact, but there's no way to know if the weapons still work." "We're diverting power now," Laura's voice replied. "You should see systems coming online soon." As she spoke, the lights in the facility grew brighter. Displays on the control console began to light up, and a low hum filled the chamber as machines awakened after 2 centuries of sleep. "It's working," Steve exclaimed. Nyleth examined the console. "According to this, the laser array is still operational. The targeting system needs coordinates." John relayed this to Haven 1, and Henry sent the coordinates of the nearest harvester ship, the one that had already landed. "Power levels rising," Steve reported, watching the gauges. 80%, 90, 100%. "We're ready to fire." "Do it," Laura ordered through the communication link. Steve pressed the firing control. The entire mountain seemed to vibrate as the massive laser activated. A blindingly bright beam shot from the peak of the mountain, striking the landed harvester ship. The energy was far greater than what the satellites had produced. The harvester ship didn't just take damage, it exploded in a massive fireball. The other harvester ships immediately halted their descent. "They're pulling back," John shouted, watching through a monitoring system. "They're returning to orbit." Steve targeted another ship. The laser fired again, almost hitting it as the harvester ship maneuvered to avoid the beam. "They're leaving," Captain Alara reported from the Horizon Seeker. "All remaining ships are accelerating away from Earth." In Haven 1's command center, people began to cheer. Laura allowed herself a small smile of relief. "Keep tracking them," she ordered. "Make sure they're really going." An hour later, the harvesters had left Earth's solar system entirely. The immediate threat was over. In the Eagle Peak facility, Steve, Nyleth, and the others watched the confirmation come through on their displays. "We did it," Steve said, hardly believing it. Nyleth's skin glowed with bright blue patterns of joy. "Humans truly are remarkable," she said. "No wonder you survived when everyone thought you were gone." As they made their way back to Haven 1, they could see people already emerging onto the surface, looking up at the sky without fear for the first time in generations. Laura, Grant stood at the entrance to Haven 1, waiting for them. Behind her, Captain Alara and Dr. Zarix had arrived from their ship. "The collective will know of Earth's survival now," Captain Alara said, "and of the bravery of its people. You will no longer be alone in the galaxy." Laura nodded. "Perhaps it's time we stopped hiding. The Earth has healed enough. Maybe we can start building on the surface again, but differently this time. Better." She looked at Steve and Nyleth, standing side by side. "And maybe we can learn from our new friends too." Steve smiled. "All because some aliens thought our planet was empty, until a human spoke up." Nyleth's 4 eyes blinked in what humans would recognize as a smile. Sometimes the most important discoveries are the ones you never expected to make. As the sun set over Earth, humans stood on their planet's surface looking up at the stars not with fear but with hope. They were no longer hiding in the shadows. Earth was silent no more.